Hello and welcome to my video about 5 documentaries about LGBTQ plus people / life / culture. I am a massive fan of documentaries. I will pretty much watch them about anything, any genre, any type. I find them all completely fascinating, from the very kind of predictable presenter-led ones to the kind of weird, experimental, strange ones. I'm into all of them. And so what I thought I'd give you is just 5 of the ones that I have enjoyed, or that are quite iconic or well known, that are sort of ones to start with in terms of LGBT content. But if you have any more recommendations, then please leave them in the comments for people to check out. So I know I said 5, but the first one's going to be a kind of double bill. So Paris is Burning and Kiki. These are very much 2 different films, but they both cover the New York ballroom scene. Paris is Burning is a 1990 film, which is about the New York scene then, the balls, the houses. It looked quite seriously at the intersections between like race and sexuality and poverty, and had very frank interviews with people across the whole community, including different ages and different genders. And then Kiki has been described as a sort of spiritual child of Paris is Burning, but with a little more of a hopeful note. It shows like the legacy of the balls from the 80s and 90s, but also how LGBTQ plus youth of colour are still kind of using the art form in the community today. I think a lot of LGBTQ plus documentaries have a reasonably kind of sad note, in that a lot of the big things that have happened to our community are kind of tragic, and so these are ones that maybe are like fascinating and have those elements of hardship to them, but also have this celebration of community. So if that's what you're looking for, can highly recommend. Second recommendation is How to Survive a Plague. So I think that with any film that is looking at the AIDS epidemic, it is something which could be very much fall into like misery porn, that it could just be all of the sadness. And this, I think, is particularly poignant because it doesn't just focus on that, it focuses on the activists that were fighting to change it. This was actually the filmmaker's first film. He was a journalist who had covered the kind of AIDS epidemic and LGBT life for like a long time, and then subsequently wrote a book that was kind of brought out alongside the film, which has had massive critical acclaim. Both the book and the film have. It is a recent film, but it does look much older because it is basically just like archive footage and interviews from the time, so it has that kind of 80s feel to it, 90s feel to it, very grainy film, stuff like that, but do not let that put you off in any way. This is a film that I can highly recommend to people interested in activism, or to people who are sort of maybe familiar with the AIDS crisis, but not with the very horrific intersection of like religion and politics and the medical field, which actually hindered the solutions to this thing that was killing so many queer people. The third one I'm going to recommend is Do I Sound Gay? This is actually from the same producer as the last one, but looks at a very different topic. Namely, as the title suggests, what does it mean to sound gay? Can you sound gay? And also, what does that tell us about things like nature versus nurture, internalized homophobia, gay subculture, etc, etc. This film is a really interesting mix of kind of lightheartedness and humour, while also talking about topics that are a little bit more heavy, but having that kind of that lightness to it as well, whilst not being completely surface level. Number 4, Southern Comfort. So this is a emotionally harrowing documentary. It follows the story of a trans man who is diagnosed with ovarian cancer, but then is denied treatment by multiple doctors because they are basically worried about their reputations. Like, there's no way to sugarcoat what this documentary is about, but it also, like a lot of queer documentaries, kind of either on purpose or accidentally, these films, when they're capturing queer life, also capture these positives, these shining little nuggets of positivity that are things like found family and queer spaces and communities and like self-identity, and those things are all key here, even in the face of such tragedy. And I'm very aware, as I said earlier, that these kind of very sad documentaries might be something which you are not that interested in getting into because they are quite difficult to handle, and sometimes you're like, I'm sad enough already, I don't need this. So my 5th recommendation is going to be one which is like kind of treated with humour and aggravation, I feel when I watch it, rather than sadness, which is the iconic The Celluloid Closet. It is a just landmark documentary which is so comprehensive about the portrayal of queer people and queerness on screen. It covers over 100 films, it has interviews, it has a ton of footage from those films, archive footage. It is just sweeping and brilliant. It was released at a time when these conversations were starting to pick up about representation, and it basically just like blew the doors open on all of these stereotypes and tropes and things that had been happening for years and had basically just like tumbled through and created the representation that they were having at the time. This one was a must-watch for anyone who is into queer cinema, which, to be honest, if you're subscribed to this channel, I mean, that's you, so you should go and watch it. So yeah, those were just 5/6 films that I've really enjoyed. If you have any recommendations for LGBT documentaries, please put them in the comments, as I said at the start of the video. And if you'd like to help support me make these videos, please consider becoming a patron on Patreon. I'm going to leave details of that in the description, along with all my social media, so you can find me all over the internet. And until I see you next time, bye!